In 2023, there were some videos that went viral online that showed a Wimbledon tennis match where all of a sudden the umpire stops the game midpoint to penalize Novak Djokovic for making too much noise while playing. Here's the moment right here.
Hindrance.
What?
Wow, they gave the point to center because Djokovic
15-30.
extended his
That's
grunt.
absurd.
Now, if you're wondering what's going on and why this happened, in this video, we're going to look at the recent trend of trying to stop tennis players from grunting and yelling, and we're also going to look at some of the rules they've come up with to address it, including something they came up with called the grunt-o-meter. And as a little bonus, as part of my research for this, I came across this method that may actually help you predict the outcome of a tennis match based on how a player grunts, so stick around, this is going to be pretty cool. Now, grunting in tennis isn't new. But why did tennis players grunt in the first place? Well, there's actually quite a few reasons, but you can basically separate them into one of two categories. On one side, you have how it benefits the grunting athlete. Studies have shown that grunting players tend to hit their ground strokes 3.7% faster and serve 4.9% faster than the non-grunters. This suggests that grunting lets players put more physical effort into their shots. It also helps them synchronize their breathing with their shots, which can enhance their timing and rhythm. And finally, grunting may provide a physiological and psychological release of tension. It helps players stay relaxed during their intense matches. It's also interesting to note that renowned coach Nick Bollettieri used to encourage grunting at his Flores Tennis Academy for the above reasons, and he's responsible for training Larcher de Brito, Andre Agassi, the Williams sisters, Maria Sharapova. These are some of the greatest of all times, who are all outstanding champions, some of the greatest of all times, but also all happen to be some of the loudest grunters in the game. Now, on the flip side, let's look at how grunting impacts the opponents. This study shows that grunting can drown out the sound of a ball hitting the racket, and that leaves opponents confused, making it harder for them to determine the ball's direction and speed as it comes off the racket. Loud grunting or shouting can also draw the opponent's focus away from the moment that the racket connects with the ball, and it affects their reaction time and their ability to process information due to just how the human eye is naturally drawn to loud noises as a survival reflex. So grunting can be considered performance enhancing for the grunter, but performance hindering for their opponents. In fact, some players have even called grunting a form of cheating, stating that opponents can't hear how the ball is hit due to the loud grunting at the moment the ball makes contact. But there's a third aspect that we need to consider, and that's the impact on the fans, both in the stadium and those watching on television. Some love the drama, but others, they find it annoying. Actually, in 2015, there was even a moment where the crowd can be heard mocking Sabalenka for her excessive shouting during the game.
Yeah, oh dear.
So for my tennis fans out there, before we talk about the rule change, pop open the comments section and let me know if you're one of those fans who love it or hate it. I love reading the comment section because I know some of you can provide a lot more insight into this. Now, let's talk about the rules on excessive grunting. What are the existing rules, what's new, and what exactly is this grunt-o-meter that I mentioned earlier? Well, the current rules that Djokovic and others got penalized for is called the Hindrance Rule. If a player is hindered by the opponent's deliberate or unintentional act, they either win the point or replay it. And here are some examples of the Hindrance Rule being called in action.
Friction, hindrance.
Hindrance for what?
Loss of points. Hindrance.
The hindrance rule isn't anything new, but the issue with this rule seems to be that it's subjective. The term excessive grunting is kind of a gray area, and it's up to the umpire's discretion to decide what's excessive and what's not. Add to the fact that it hardly ever gets called, so when someone does get penalized for it, it's quite a bit of controversy. Therefore, in 2012, the Women's Tennis Association and the International Tennis Federation teamed up with several Grand Slams to attempt an all-out ban on excessive grunting. The WTA chairman at the time was Stacey Alister, and she declared it was time to eliminate excessive grunting for the sake of the future generations. Alistair's plan was to introduce a grunt-o-meter. This is a device that umpires could use to measure the loudness of grunts. It would help set standards for noise levels, but also define how loud someone could grunt or shriek before they would be penalized. However, when Alistair retired in 2015, her successor, Steve Simon, he wasn't as enthusiastic about eliminating grunting. In fact, he decided not to impose any new rules beyond the already established hindrance regulation, noting that although grunting is a controversial topic in tennis, the popularity of tennis has not been affected by grunting. And in fact, women's tennis continues to rise in popularity, which likely influenced his decision to not outlaw it. But we still have the hindrance rule. It's still subjective, and it's up to the umpire's discretion to decide what's considered excessive grunting. And because it rarely gets called, when someone does get penalized for it, there's quite a bit of controversy, like what we saw with Novak. And that's why we still have matches that look like this.
Good. Comes the grunting.
Well, if you're into sports betting, then you might want them to keep making noise, because as part of my research, I found a method that might help predict the match outcome based on how a player grunts. In the study, scientists suggest that the pitch of a player's grunt can give clues to whether they're on their way to victory or defeat. See, the lower pitched grunts might mean that the player is winning, while higher pitched ones could indicate they might lose. And this was true for both men and women. The study found that grunts let out by tennis players during a match can predict whether an athlete is on their way to win or lose a match. Now, personally, I would like to see a little bit more research into this, but for now, I'll link to this study in the description if you want to learn more about it. I'm John from Jumpers Junction. Thanks for watching.